City of Seven Hills received an amendment request for our PUD for their project on Rockside Road. I'm going to turn the floor over to Alan Ritchie and Jeff Grafe to briefly discuss what it's about, and then we'll have a conversation about where it stands right now and what the possible plan could be going forward. Gentlemen?
Mind if I sit? Or?
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Thanks. It's nice to be back in front of everyone again. I think, as you know, we have consistently, come before you with several different plans, for the potential development. And in each case, the approach has been to try to do what was best, not just for the developer, but to do what was best for the project, the city, the school board, etc., at each and every stage. Looking at the topography of the site, the marketplace, everything else, these things do change over time based on what can be built, what the market will permit and allow. And trying to balance all those things, I think LSB has done a really good job of going through this process in order to achieve that. What we're proposing now is a change to the PUD ordinance, and we've also submitted for planning's consideration an amendment to the approved preliminary plan. So what is it that we're asking for? We're asking, actually, let me just make this very clear. We understand this is a sensitive topic. We are not here to push anything through. We're here to introduce this issue for everyone's discussion. We expect multiple planning commission meetings. We expect everyone to have their fair discussion. We want to have an open discussion about this. But we do want everyone to know the facts about what's being said and what's being proposed. So with that,
Before you continue, I want to mention that when an amendment request is submitted to the city, we put this on our agenda and we have the option of referring it to Planning Commission. Absolutely no action is being taken tonight. It's a very long process, and there's certainly no decisions being made tonight.
right, and thanks for that point, Matt. It is a long process, and one of the reasons we've approached in this way in putting the PUD amendment in front of council, as well as the preliminary plan, and getting it both into planning. What we're trying to do is not rush this, but we're trying to have everything on the table for everyone to consider at one time. It very well may be that the PUD amendment comes out of planning first, because planning has to approve that amendment, that ordinance, before it gets considered by council again. So that very well could be that amendment comes out of planning first, gets considered by council, then planning would actually act and say, okay, this is what we want to see in your plan. So the approach here is not to rush this, but the approach is to do it instead of very linearly, where we're looking at months and months and months because of the process in the PUD. We think if we do it together all at the same time, everyone will have much more and better information when they start making these decisions. So that's really the reason for the approach. So what are we asking for? What is the change? Well, it's not really a change, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that. Right now, the PUD permits apartments. It permits it. It's expressly permitted. In fact, our very first plan that was approved, preliminary development plan that was approved, had the apartments there. They were on top of the retail. And right now, the PUD says that the apartments, or any multi-unit, whatever the terminology is, I forget off the top of my head, is on top of commercial, retail, or office. So as long as that apartment building is on top of retail or office or other commercial, a fitness center, whatever it might be, it was and is permitted under the PUD. So I want to make sure that that gets out there, because really what we're asking for, and we're going to give you all the reasons why, is we're asking to take those apartments, which we, as the most recent plan that we have before you, are approved, all we've done is taken them off for now, and we put them into what we were hoping to do with phase 2, along with the hotel that's also in a later phase, etc. And all we're asking for is now is to take those apartments and push them back on the site and put them standing on their own. So instead of on top of commercial, to standing on their own. That is really the change that we're asking for. So it's already permitted, we're just asking to move them back a little bit. And take the place of where we currently have approved the 100 townhomes. So in parcels B, it's B and D, currently in our preliminary development plan, that we could come in tomorrow with our final plan and break ground on, is where we had planned 100 townhomes. That's what we had there now. And what we're asking for is to put this apartment development there. So why is it that we're looking to do this? Well, you know, two partners, both clients, LSB and Geist Development, met several months ago and started talking about doing different projects throughout the country, apartments and other things. And as their relationship grew, they felt that this might be a great location to do one of their luxury apartment complexes. And so they started planning it, they started looking at it, and that's really what we're here to start talking about, whether it makes sense for the city, schools, and everyone else. So that joint venture is who would be developing the apartments. You know, what kind of apartments are we talking about? We're talking about an apartment complex of 250 to 270 units. We're talking about resort-style pool, clubhouse, business centers, fitness center, etc., all as part of the development. One of the issues that we had with the apartments over the retail was it was very expensive to build apartments on top of another structure. So that alone, if you're building it, it costs more to start building it. You have rents that you would need to achieve in order to pay for it and get the returns that an apartment developer wanted. So we had the apartments in the plan, they're on top of the retail, it's very cost prohibitive. And the other problem is, why was it cost prohibitive? Is because you couldn't get the rents that would be necessary to support an additional cost when there's no amenities. There's no amenities for apartments that are above retail, commercial, etc. There is no swimming pool. There is no fitness center. There is none of those things. So what you're talking about is building the cheapest box you can, putting it on top of retail, so the development makes sense. But that means lower rents, and that's really not what we're trying to achieve. What we're trying to achieve are, this development of 250 to 270 units. We're not talking about affordable housing here. I mean, the creditworthiness of these, of these potential tenants. We're talking about rents of $1,200 to $2,000 for apartments. We're talking about like 56 one-bedroom, one-baths, 176 two-bedroom, two-baths, and 43 three-bedroom, two-baths. And I'm really hoping that, what we're trying to do, again, is get this down into the Planning Commission, both the PUD amendment and the revised plan, because Geist and LSB has a really great presentation, PowerPoint, all of that kind of stuff. And so what we're trying to do is get there, and we're hoping to still do that this week. I'm not sure if we'll be able to with people's schedules. So I was talking about the size of the rents for the apartments. They're about 759 square feet to up to 1,400 square feet, basically. The overall investment for the apartments is $35 to $40 million for the apartments. And one of the other things that we thought, one of the reasons why we thought this was better for the city, among several others that I'll talk about, is when we were developing the centerpiece to do townhomes, we weren't developing them. We were actually putting in the improvements, and then somebody else, a Ryan or a Dries or whoever it was going to actually build the townhomes. That is something that happens over a long period of time. So it could be 5 years, 7 years before you see all of the economic benefits that we were deriving from the value of those townhomes, for example, and the people that were living there. LSB is obviously developing the mixed-use piece in the front, and then LSB and Geist were going to may develop the apartments in the middle, which means that we could commit in the development agreement today that this will be built subject to financing and all those other things within the next 18 to 24 months. where before we could only commit to do the front. But now we're able to commit contractually with the city that we're able to develop that within the next 18, 24 months, which accelerates all the benefits that we're talking about, which are what? With the apartments, we had 100 townhomes, and so now you have about 250 to 270 apartments. Obviously, the value of the apartments is greater than the value of all the townhomes. So the real estate taxes generated, we think it's about it's $20 million more in cost. So if we assume like a $10 million increase in the value, that's another $300,000 in real estate taxes that would be generated from the apartment projects. But more importantly, I think from the city's perspective, is the apartment project produces actually $150,000 more per year for the city. And that's because of the income taxes. You have more residents, more households. We actually also believe that because of the structure of the development, we only have 43 three-bedroom apartments, which is what really I think families with kids might be moving into. It's really not necessarily the target market, which I'll talk about in a second, but actually 43 families moving into the apartment complex as opposed to young professionals from downtown that don't want to live downtown anymore, can't afford to live downtown anymore, whatever it might be, and other people that work on Rockside. Actually, there's a much reduced burden on schools, but you got to increase real estate tax for the schools. So it's a much net better benefit for both the city financially and for the schools financially. So again, the process here has been, how can we develop this site, given the market, given the topography, given the costs of trying to run utilities down, through the rock and all those things, which really limit what this site can be used for. I would love to be a pro golfer. I can't be a pro golfer. I'm no good at golf. Unfortunately, this site is kind of like that. It only is going to be what it can be. We'd love to put all office buildings on this site, but it just never can be that. It's just not what it can be, given all of these things, including the market, including the cost, et cetera, but also including the surrounding area. I mean, to have strictly commercial, and I know we've been down this road, and that's not what we're looking at, even on the preliminary plan that we've got approved. But again, the point is, it's an evolving thing, and we think that the apartments are an add for this project financially for everybody. We think that it's an add, overall for the schools. So at the end of the day, when we stepped back, we said, gee, is this something that at least should be talked about? Can we at least talk about it? Because of all the benefits to everybody, it made sense to us to come to you guys like this and say, let's have an open discussion about it. But again, we're not here to ram anything through. We expect multiple meetings. We expect people to have concerns and issues. For example, what are we willing to commit to on the apartment project? We'd be, if we wanted to say in the PUD amendment, and this is exactly the kind of stuff that would be coming out in planning, how do we know you're going to build a resort-style pool? Well, we put that in. Absolutely put that in. The design standards, because the PUD already contemplated apartments, they were already contemplated. The design standards are really strict. We worked together with the city to come up with really stringent standards on what these buildings can look like. That's already in there. So now what we're saying is all we're trying to do is take these apartments and push them back a little bit and off the retail. Because it doesn't make sense for anybody in this room for us to build apartments on top of the retail, because we won't lease the retail. And the apartments will come out like boxes because of the costs and the rents that we actually think we can get. And we can't get amenities there. We can't put a pool anywhere. We can't put, a clubhouse anywhere. When you're talking about, apartments on top of retail, on the middle of a site like this. So overall, we think it's an absolute add for everybody. And again, we're here to have an open discussion. We're not trying to ram it through. We're not trying to have this all done in a week. We want to hear everyone's concerns, but we wanted everyone to kind of have those facts. And we really do think that overall, it's much better for us, the city, and the schools if we take the apartments that are already approved and we push them back a little bit. Actually, they're actually going to be lower than they would have been if we did them in the front. Because if we put the apartments on top of the retail that were already permitted, I think we were at 65 feet. And now by moving them back and putting them on the ground, we're even lower than what was anticipated. The preliminary development plan right now shows the exact same thing on parcel B than it does on D. we absolutely would consider doing something else that's right up against Crossview for the folks on Crossview that are concerned about having something that's so tall there. Again, we want to have an open discussion about it, and we think that the proper place to do that is to have the PUD amendment sitting there with the proposed language, and again, I say proposed language, and then the preliminary development plan. So Planning Commission has all the information in front of it, all the tools to, again, think about what we're asking for, is just to push these approved apartments back a little bit.
Thanks, Alan. So why don't we go around the table with any questions from council and the mayor, and then open it up to our residents, and you can ask any questions or make any comments that you may have. Anybody at the table?
For my clarification, in order for this to even be discussed, council has to address this at this time, right? So that it can go to the planning commission.
The first step in this process, if we move forward, is for council this evening or at another meeting to refer to the planning commission. The planning commission would then make recommendations on this proposed ordinance, and they'd send it back to council for consideration again. So if we make any action tonight, it's simply to refer to the planning commission, and that's when Alan and Jeff could make a presentation to everybody, very detailed, with drawings and pictures, and financial numbers and things of that nature. So,
Based upon just getting this, and this kind of came to a little bit of surprise to me. I was really surprised by the number of people who contacted me on this and knew more about this than I did. And I could see there was definitely an organized effort on somebody's part, and being that we have an election coming up this year. I wasn't born yesterday, so I could see that this is more of an effort, not so much what's in the best interest of the city of Seven Hills. And I don't know if it is or not yet, because it hasn't gotten to that point where we could study this. You're talking numbers that would generate more income for the city. I'm a councilman here representing the people of the city and what's in the best interest of Seven Hills, not what's in the best interest of one political party over another one. And in talking to some of the people as they were calling me and emailing me, I said, how did you get all this information? I'm a councilman, I haven't got it. And evidently through whatever, Twitter, Facebook, whatever emails that were sent out, and people were pinpointed and told to come to meetings, discuss this. People are down at Drug Mart going through all this stuff. And I got to tell you, that just smacks so much of the political atmosphere that we've been trying to change in the city. The politics that have stopped the city from moving ahead, stopped a project like this from not going ahead for years. I was a councilman 30-some years ago when we did Lombardo, and it was going to take off, and that whole area would be developed, and the politics after that stopped it, and Lombardo sat there. So Independence has all the things that they have, all the taxes, all the benefits, and we're sitting here getting all their traffic and everything else, and we're still sitting here with just a little bit of Lombardo. We have an opportunity now to do something. I don't know all the pros and cons on it yet because I haven't been informed. But I just, from my personal point, I feel that if this is just being done, all the people being notified under the auspices of the good guidance of what's best for the city, I think a lot of people are being taken advantage of and used in order for other people to achieve their agendas, not what's best for the city of Seven Hills. And that to me is disgusting. It's sad. I know it's called politics, but it's wrong. If I sit here as a councilman representing the city, I want to know what's involved here before I can say yay or nay. Now, I'm not going to be intimidated by someone telling people get out and whatever stories are being fed. So if you're asking me what do I think now, I think we have to get more information on it. If the procedure is that we have to make a recommendation in order for it to move ahead in planning and zoning, and for them to make their objective studies on it, for me to say no, I could be denying the people of the city income that I don't know if it's true or false. So at this point, my only thing I can see is at least to move ahead and let's find out what it's about. I can't make a decision on partial things or on hearsay.
I'm gonna agree with Tom. I think we have to see what these guys have to offer. Let it take its course and go from there.
Well, I'm going to, I'll agree with what Tom said. I received phone calls, emails today, and again, people knew more about what was going on than I did. And my personal feeling is, yeah, Tom, you're right. This is Seven Hills politics at its finest, and again, not for the betterment of the city, but for someone or some group's personal agenda, which seems to do nothing but stifle this city week after week after week after week. And like you, Tom, frankly, I'm tired. I'm very tired of it. I'd like to hear more as well.
Jim?
Echo everything that Tom said over there. I've been here, what, a year and a half? Never did politics before. This gentleman's one of the most respected men in this community. He's seen it all. He'll tell you what happened years ago with Lombardo. We have to look at this, and I agree with everything he said.
Tony?
Oh, I agree with due process. So it should go to the planning commission. The facts should come out, and then we're gonna evaluate this give it a look as the city deserves to give it a look.
I want to mention one thing that most people may not remember or even know. About 12 years ago, this plan unit development was created by a charter change, voted the residents. And I wish it didn't happen the way it happened, but the voters voted to give city council complete control over how this area is zoned. Believe me, I wish that wasn't the case. But that's where we are right now. So I want everybody to know that regardless of who is sitting at this table, it's a moving body. It's not just us. It's anybody that is here. And it's a very difficult thing because it's the only section of land in our city where that's the case. And when something is submitted to the city, it's our responsibility to act on it and give it a fair hearing, just like some of these guys just said. My position is I'm not committed one way or another on apartments in the city just yet, but I do want to learn more about what these guys have to offer. My opinion is let's send it to Planning Commission, give your presentations, let's find a way to notify all the residents in the city, maybe a robocall, do a big meeting in here or somewhere else, and go from there, see what Planning Commission does. Maybe they send it back to council, maybe they don't. And a great example is just a couple weeks ago, the other developers brought an idea to the city that council referred to the Planning Commission. They denied it, and the whole thing stopped. So that very well could be the situation here too. But I want to hear what you guys have to say, and I'll support, we'll be referring it to planning tonight. Members of the audience, or Mayor Dell'Aquila.
Thanks. I absolutely agree that there's too much politics involved in all of these decisions. We, for the better part of the last 30, 40 years, have constantly been approached by entities who want to build not only commercial, but also apartments in this community. And I can tell you that in each of those instances, the answer was no. We are 96%, 95% built out. This is our last opportunity to maximize our return on that property. As you know, and it's been no secret, I was encouraging that council before the PUD was passed, engage the developer and hopefully execute at least a preliminary development agreement. Had that been done, we would at this point not be having these conversations at all. We would have had a binding agreement as to what was to be built, what percentages were going to be built, how the project would be phased, what was going to be used for dedicated area, is there going to be public financing. All of those things could have been folded into that agreement. We now find ourselves today where we've always said we didn't want to be. We're talking about 270 apartments in our town, apartment units. Now, I take the argument that there is the provision for apartments over the retail, but that's limited by the amount of retail. We're talking now about 40,000 square feet of retail space. What I understand is being proposed now is a giant apartment complex, far greater in scope than what would have been built, if at all, on top of the retail. All of that being said, I will keep an open mind. I'll listen to what the Planning Commission says, but I start out opposed to 270 apartment units in our city.
Before we get to resident comment, I want to address the development agreement. Development agreements are pretty common with things of this nature, and this council decided not to do one about a year ago because this is a very long process. From start to finish, we could be talking 5 years. And we chose not to do this development agreement because the market changes, everything changes. And it just would not have made sense, in our opinion, to lock a developer into something a year ago that today or in a year or 2 years may not apply. That was the logic behind that decision. Members of the audience, let's start here and we'll work our way around. Chris.
You guys say that you don't know anything about this, but is ordinance 90 the first reading of this proposal?
Ordinance 90 is a first reading and a possible referral to the Planning Commission. And so everybody knows how it works. Every ordinance typically is given 3 readings, which is a 6-week process.
So, you guys didn't know about this ordinance 90 before right now?
No, Chris, we get these agendas ahead of time.
Who writes them up?
We're just learning about some of the details right now.
And who writes the ordinances out here?
The city's law department.
You mentioned department that is above the retail, commercial, and now you're saying that it's not, the funding, the expenses are too much to put that above that. Yet, when you stood here before and said that you're going to put apartments up there, you said this was ideal, this was like Caucus Park. You did the studies, everything is sustainable there. Now you're coming to us and saying that it's not sustainable, that you can't do it. Now you're going to put the apartments, a big complex somewhere else, and move it from this retail to there. And you didn't know about that beforehand?
No, we didn't actually.
Guys, listen to me. These are developers. They knew about this. They knew they couldn't do that. And they planned on doing exactly what they're doing today because they know. They've done this before. They're not dumb. This is a bait and switch. This is what they're doing. The next thing is, is this going to take the place of the medical marijuana place or no?
Okay,
That's a
Chris,
different.
hang on. All due respect, you follow this a lot. Let's get our facts straight, Chris.
I don't know what that is.
You should. The medical marijuana was the other developer.
Right.
You were at that meeting. You know that.
Yep.
This is completely separate.
Okay.
And let's not assume that
Okay.
this is going to go forward either. We
I
just had that conversation.
I realize that, but I know how these first readings go, and then the second reading, and then it just, the other thing is, you mentioned the money that this is gonna bring into the city. Well, you're also gonna have fire and police, and a lot of other stuff, because you have 275 luxury now. In 5 years from now, it's gonna be like Midtown Towers, which Midtown Towers used to be luxury. Now, they have all that police problem there. You're gonna have all that problem there, you're gonna have additional expenses. This isn't about dollars, okay? You're able to develop townhouses there and get dollar value out of that and keep the community the way it is. By putting the apartments, you just ruined everything.
Okay, we don't necessarily disagree
I
with you,
realize
Chris.
that, I'm just stating my point.
Well-
Sorry about that, Mark. The other thing is, okay, so you guys are gonna vote, you guys are gonna look at this and you're gonna vote on it. You are gonna vote on it, if it goes. If you vote on it, remember, there's an election in November. If you guys vote yes. Do you remember the John Glenn?
Chris, vote against us. It's okay.
I realize this, but.
Believe me, a lot of people are.
I'm telling you what I'm saying. Remember the John Glenn?
Sure.
How we, the residents, went out and sent out these flyers to every house. Well, me and my neighbor did 2,000 houses on our bike. We'll do it again.
Great, go ahead, we'll help you.
Great.
Chris, we're doing the best we can, and these developers are bringing in, over a course of decades, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. We owe them the respect of at least giving a presentation.
I agree.
We're trying to be partners with them,
Believe-
not enemies.
Believe me, I agree. But we gotta be very careful with developers. The only thing they care about is dollars, is making the most that they can on a land. And we gotta be careful about making the most money out of our taxes and ruining the city, this area. We don't wanna do this. We already have townhouses scheduled there, which is gonna bring in the tax dollars. Let's build them, like we did on John Glenn. We built the houses, $300,000-$400,000 houses there, bringing in great tax dollars. And it conforms to the community. This does not conform to the community.
Chris, okay, I get it, that's your opinion, and I thank you for your opinion. But we, again, owe it to these people to present to us what their plan is, so that we can truly understand what the impact, positive or negative, may be.
I'm not,
Okay?
I'm not
All
saying
right?
that not take a look at
You're
the
just,
plan.
you're against it, you're already gonna, you're gonna put
Oh,
2,000.
oh, yeah.
You're gonna do 2,000, whatever, and,
Today, all right, today, I'm against this project. From what I heard, I'm against this project. Now, I'll come to the meetings, I'll listen to everything, and then every meeting, I'll voice my opinion, okay?
That I can
But
be sure
as,
of.
give me a mic.
Yeah, no, that's the last thing we
All
want to
right,
do.
what else do you have, Chris?
All right,
Anything
that's,
else?
Yeah, other people need to speak.